Hi everyone, welcome to this month's Body Breakthroughs workshop. I'm Dr. Cindy, if you didn't know, and this month's workshop is called Stressed Out, and it's all about surviving the run into Christmas because, believe it or not, I did a quick Google today. From today, we're 59 days away from Christmas. And what does that mean? It's a busy time of the year, and it's more often than not, you're going to get stressed out. So if you're feeling a bit stressed, I really hope you learned something from this workshop. All right, so without further ado, I am going to start the presentation. Let me share my screen. All righty, stressed out, surviving the run into Christmas. So in today's workshop, I'll be covering the following topics. We're going to first talk about what is stress, then what is the stress response, how do you reduce stress, as well as how do you actually increase your stress tolerance, which is the most important part. So what is stress? When I was making this presentation, I had to put in a definition, right? But the thing is, when you search on Google, what is stress? So many definitions come up, and it's because stress is totally subjective. It's how you interpret stress. Everyone's definition is very different. But for the sake of putting a definition, I picked one from the Oxford Dictionary, and it states, a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. But because I'm a chiropractor, my definition of stress personally, though, is simply put as the 3 T's. So the most obvious form of stress people tend to think about is the thoughts. That's the emotional mental stress. But equally important though, we can't neglect that toxins, your chemical stress, can also influence your emotional stress as well as physical trauma stress as well. As you can see in this photo here, I don't know what the special word for it though, but it's all interlinked. Alrighty. I'll be interested to hear what your personal definition of stress is. Okay, so what exactly is a stress response? Well, many things happen in the body. Well, for starters, and the biggest change is when you're stressed, your adrenals, which are glands that sit on top of your kidneys, it increases and releases more cortisol. Now, we need cortisol for certain functions in our body, but it becomes an issue when you have excessive and too much cortisol because other things can also happen. When you have too much, when your body's in a lot of stress as well, you also have a decrease in production of melatonin. Now, melatonin is a hormone, and with melatonin, it is essentially your sleep hormone. And when you have not enough melatonin, you might find yourself excessively tired and really unable to sleep, and as well as you might be waking up throughout the night, and you might even be nocturnal as well. Other changes that happen when you're stressed is you have a decreased immune system regulation. So you need energy to cope with fighting everything off. But when your body's in a state of stress, it's in a state of what we call fight or flight, that it has to prioritize all these other autonomic responses that is more urgent. And then prioritizing healing doesn't quite happen, and therefore it's easier for people to get sick. On top of that though, during the holiday period particularly, which is why I'm doing this presentation, people get stressed, but not just that, it's also the time when people consume a lot of sugar and foods they wouldn't always be eating, so festive eating. So with sugar, everyone knows that sugar increases inflammation, and when you have too much inflammation in your body, then your body's busy fighting that, and therefore you have a decreased immune system. Some changes can also happen involving your cardiovascular system. So you can also have, with stress, higher blood pressure and higher cholesterol as well as increased clotting factors. And increased inflammation is probably one of the biggest ones, because as your cortisol increases, therefore it also increases your body's inflammation. So I found some really interesting research that I wanted to share though, talking about cardiac mortality, because it's one thing to say, yes, stress increases cardiovascular disease and heart attacks, but because my presentation is revolving around the holiday period, I found research that specifically talks about that cardiac mortality is high around Christmas and New Year's than any other time. So this was an American study. It was quite a long period, but it was over nearly 30 years. And as you can see here, between July 1st and the 30th of June, it really peaks. The amount of cardiac mortality really peaks, particularly New Year's Day. So this study was an American study, so it's quite far from where we are. So I found another study, which is more local. So research started from New Zealand, studied more than 738,000 deaths over 25 years, and has found that a 4.2 increase in heart-related deaths occurred out of hospital between Christmas Day and January 7th. So once again, it's a really similar finding to the American study. Alrighty, so when we're talking about the holiday period, our life demands certain things, but to be fair, I think it's not just limited to just the holiday period, but life in general. So in our life, you can call our limited resources, well, the economy of our limited resources are the four big ones. So you got time, energy, focus, and money. We got time is ticking. You know, some of us have a holiday closure period, and so we have deadlines to meet, and there's only so little time to do certain things. That therefore leads into having less energy if we aren't getting enough time for rest and relaxation. We're also using a lot of our energy once again to focus, and we have less focus for more important things. And more money, that is because with the holiday Christmas period, you know, buying Christmas, we can have, or if you're not working as much, that can be something, but also the obvious Christmas presents and gift giving. So all of these four limited resources can lead to chronic stress. But the thing with stress though is there are essentially two sides to the same coin. You can look at it either way. You can reduce stress, but I think the more important part in the long run is to actually increase your stress tolerance. But obviously, you know, if you're having an acute stress state, it's important that you reduce the stress to begin with. So let's start by talking, what are some of the things we can do to reduce stress? So breath work and meditation are the two most well-researched things that you can do to reduce your stress. When it comes to breath work, there are so many forms of breath work out there. You can just simply take deep breaths to yourself and self-regulate. However, I actually personally recommend and teach my patients in the practice box breathing. I really like this technique because it's well researched, and also because it's really simple and easy. So what you basically do is, so let's use this QR code as a box. So we'll start from here. All you do is you breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold that breath once again for 4 seconds. And with this breathwork technique, all it does is it allows you to be in control of your breath and regulate. And the best thing about this type of breathwork is when you're holding your breath, it allows for the carbon dioxide to release more into your blood to help switch on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about your resting and healing. With this breathwork technique as well, you also can do it like on the go, wherever you are. So let's say if you're driving, you're just at a red light, you can just practice your breath work in that state. But I have included here in this QR code. So if you just scan this QR code, it takes you to a YouTube guide link. It's a video, so it goes for 10 minutes, and you don't need to look at this video. You can just play in the background, and all you're listening for is, excuse my humming, but it's like and so it will make this one sound for 4 seconds, and then after 4 seconds it will change to another sound, and so you can just listen out and focus on your breathing that way, and just really help calm yourself. Because people who have, say, an anxiety or a panic attack, that sometimes when they're breathing uncontrollably, that can often further make the anxiety attack even worse. And so controlling your breathing can help you calm down. Another technique is meditation. So once again, similarly to breathwork, there are so many types of meditation out there. But what I personally recommend to my patients, as well as what I use as well, is an app called Balance. Now, with Balance, it is a personalized app that asks you, what do you really want to focus on? So it can ask you, do you want to work on just reducing stress? Is it improving your relationships? Is it work related? Is it low self-esteem and low confidence? Or do you want to be just wanting general well-being? Do you want positivity or motivation? So many categories, and on top of that, it has certain durations as well. So if you're in a rush, there are 5-minute meditations. If you want longer ones, there are longer ones. With Balance as well, sounds like I'm really selling it, but with the Balance app, it also has levels, so you can see your progression and improve and guide you as well. But the best part is it's actually free for the first year for you to trial. So it's a decent trial, not just 7 days, but a whole entire year. So with meditation, it can really, once again, similarly to breath work, help you calm down and be in a state of mindfulness. Other two big things are yoga and exercise. Now, this is also really well researched. Yoga and exercise has found to improve and reduce stress and anxiety. And also, to some extent, some research papers have also found that yoga and exercise can even reduce depression as well. So, as I said earlier, what is the stress response? When we're stressed, our body releases cortisol, right? But on the flip side, when you exercise and you practice yoga and other movements, then our body also releases endorphins as well, which counteracts, and it's our happy hormones and dopamines as well. So when it counteracts, then therefore you can more likely reduce your stress. In terms of yoga and exercise, with yoga, similarly to the breathwork YouTube video, there are also so many great tutorials and videos you can follow if you're interested in yoga. As for exercise, any form of exercise counts, even if it's just a simple walk, or if you really want to get your heart racing more, but you're short on time, I would recommend doing a Tabata exercise, which is the form of high-intensity interval training. So you can also take supplements as well to reduce with your stress. Now, there's ashwagandha, also known as withania. So what ashwagandha is it's an Indian root herb, and it has been shown to also reduce stress, and you can get it at any health shop or even the chemist. It's also good for you to take vitamin Bs, so you can get it as a vitamin B complex at the chemist, but I would personally recommend trying to get it through your foods. So some of the foods that have a lot of vitamin Bs are your salmon. It's also filled with omegas as well, but salmon's great. Trout is also good. And if you're into more like shell seafood, so like oysters, mussels, clams, they're also all filled with lots of vitamin Bs. Meats as well can have vitamin Bs, so beef, chicken, as well as pork. But then you can't forget the obvious ones, which is your green leafy vegetables. Bananas as well is also another good one. Oh, and also brown rice and legumes as well. So those are some of the big ones. And eggs. And it's even better if you can get organic eggs, which if you're interested, we have some at the practice. Further things that can help reduce stress is minimizing your screen time. So when we're using the screen, particularly it's even worse if you haven't got blue light filter on your glasses or on the screen, the effects, they can really stimulate our brains. And especially if you're trying to wind down and relax, the last thing you need is a chemical stimulation. Also, spending time with family and friends can reduce our stress because after all, we are human beings and we are made to connect. And sometimes we just need to be listened to and just have to speak out what we have to say, and we can like really feel a lot better. I mean, to some extent, half of what counseling is, don't get me wrong, the counselors have so many techniques to give you the tools to help yourself. But a big part of counseling is expressing how you feel as well as being heard, because more often than not, sometimes with particularly social media these days, we may feel as heard as we used to be. Also, spending time in nature is good because you can't go wrong with vitamin D as well as fresh oxygen. There's also been good research into grounding. So, you know, I know we are in Canberra, so we're a bit far from the beach, but if you get a chance, you can go at the beach, put your, you know, without shoes and socks, into sand, or otherwise onto grass, into soil, and just ground us into the earth. I'm personally not a big fan of getting too dirty, so the least I can do is, if you're like me, at home, not wear shoes and socks, and at least I'm grounding into my home. Sleep is a big one. I think this is very obvious because we all know how much better we feel when we get quality sleep and rest. Not just that though, but when we sleep, our parasympathetic nervous system is switched on, and that's the nervous system that really allows us to rest and relax as well as heal. So what are some of the things that you can do to ensure that you get quality sleep and rest? So this is where I think the concept of sleep hygiene comes into play. Now, with sleep hygiene, it's important that you get, some of the things include building a good routine. So it does mean going to bed at the same time, and so that you can aim to wake up at the same time on a regular basis. It's also important that you are happy with the environment. So it may mean having to clean the room a bit and make the bed, have clean sheets, and that can also improve with you feeling comfortable. Other things include obviously having a good mattress and a good pillow. That's also good for your spine, but it also contributes to comfort as well, because otherwise it would be restless. With sleep as well, you also want to make sure that the room is dark, so that it can help you sleep. In terms of resting and helping you fall asleep, you can look at doing breath work or meditation if you're finding it a bit hard to unwind, or finding a hobby that isn't very stimulating, such as reading like a relaxing book. So perhaps not a textbook, but more so maybe a fictional book that you can help you be falling asleep. I'm not the biggest reader, admittedly, so instead I'd rather listen to a book, but that's just me. Alrighty, so far we've been speaking a lot about what are the things that we can do to reduce stress. However, I actually want to really hopefully provide you with a lot of value today and educate you on what you can do to increase your stress tolerance, because I think that's much more sustainable in the long run as well. So here I want to talk more so about what I help people with on a regular basis. So before I talk further about stress, I want to talk about our autonomic nervous system. So it's made up of two. We have the parasympathetic here on the left and the sympathetic on the right. Now, when one is on, the other's off. So your parasympathetic definitely happens when you're sleeping, but you can ensure this on when you're, awake as well, such as when you're doing breath work, when you're in a relaxed state. So parasympathetic is all about being in a relaxed state, whereas sympathetic is when you're in a stress state. So your body has to do certain things to make sure that you're ready to take on whatever challenge that life has thrown at you. So, but the thing is, with our body, we can't differentiate between the types of stress though. So for example, you might be stressed because there's a deadline coming up or an exam you have to study for. That's fine. It's okay to be sympathetically switched on then. We expect that, and that's actually healthy, but it's more so unhealthy when it happens for so long chronically for everything, because then it starts to think that, oh, it can't differentiate between if you're running away from a lion chasing you, perhaps, which may have happened a long, long time ago. So with stress, it actually causes subluxation. Now, what subluxation is it is the interference to your nervous system, which I was just speaking about, and then there's interference, which is subluxation. There's it is harder, and there's an interference to the communication between your brain and your body. But the thing is, your nervous system helps you adapt to stress. Another really good way, or my favorite way actually, of explaining subluxation is via the safety pin cycle. So we can see here that, you know, the main message I want to say is your nerves carry messages between your brain and your body. So if we have this pin here, so that's your brain, that's your body. When you don't have subluxation from being adjusted, your body is going to be connected between your brain and your body, and it's communicating well, and therefore you're going to have good function and be in a state of ease. Compared to when you are subluxated, your brain and body is disconnected, okay? And then you're in a state of, dyshyphoneas. Alrighty, so what does this all mean though? The great thing is we can actually measure your stress, okay? The gold standard these days of measuring your stress and your resilience is via heart variability. So heart variability basically measures the variation between your heart rate and your heartbeats. So we can see here, if you're happy, there's very little variation. But if you're stressed, it's all over the place. With heart variability, it's coming out more and more into modern research. And in fact, you can even get it these days and measure it on your smartwatch or your smartphone. But the gold standard is, though, using a gold-plated coil measuring through your finger. And the thing is, we actually have this here at the practice, but I'll speak about that in a moment. But I wanted to also talk about how the link between heart variability and chiropractic, which is why I practice, is that chiropractic adjustments have been found to remove subluxation, which we know that, but it also improves heart variability. Now, what we have here in this photo is a result, the result graph of the scan that we have here in the practice. So this green box here is where you want your result to be. This result here, however, is that white square. Now, I'll explain a little bit more about that green box and why you want to be in that green box. So if we look at that bold line running straight down, if you look here, that's 100. So we have 100 here and then 0 on each side, because it's 0 to 100 and then 0 to 100 here. So on this left side, we have sympathetic, which is your fight or flight nervous system. And then on the right side, we have your parasympathetic. But this black line just only represents 100, right, of where your body is sitting. But if you can see in this dotted border, it actually traces down to 80, because it doesn't matter whether your nervous system is a little bit more sympathetically dominant or if it's a little bit more parasympathetically dominant. The reality is no one is actually 100%, not everyone is 100% perfect. And so we have healthy ranges, and the healthy range is 80 to 100. And the same thing with, on the other side, your autonomic activity, 100 to 80 is also the healthy range. So a little bit about the results. So if your result is in the green box, it means your nervous system is adapting very, very well. If it's in yellow, it means it's adapting not as well as it could be. Orange is you're under a lot of tension and you're not adapting very well. And red, it's very, very severe. And depending on how further out your result as well, also goes to show how far dominant are you. So if in this case, this person is sympathetically dominant in orange. But we have found, time and time again, particularly more recently, that with chiropractic adjustments in removing subluxation, it therefore improves heart variability. So in our practice, with the technology that we have, with the adjustments we're finding in our patients, we're seeing that their results is getting closer and closer into that green box. Alrighty, so we're coming to the end of this workshop. And I really want to say thank you all for attending. And so that's why I want to give a special gift to you. And it is for you to have a HRV scan, heart rate variability scan, to uncover your stress levels. It's completely free. So if all you have to do is call the practice, book the appointment, and I really look forward to, we also really look forward to transforming your life. This is the device right here though. So all you have to do is sit in our quiet room for 3 minutes, it measures your heart rate, and it does give you a small photo here to look at to help you relax. But otherwise, you close your eyes and relax, and you can get your heart rate variability measured that way. If you've enjoyed this workshop and you'd like more educational content, like us on Facebook or head over to YouTube and subscribe to us. And there will be more workshops to come in the coming months. We won't do something next month as it's very busy. However, next year, there'll be so many more workshops to come. All right. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions though, before I head off? Before I stop recording?
Yeah, Cindy, yes. Firstly, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And my question for you is, if there's so much going on and there's so much stress and there's so much you've shared there, where should I start?
I would start with coming in and having a free heart variability scan so we can uncover how your stress levels are to begin with.
Okay. And work doesn't really care if I'm stressed. And at home, my wife is very busy. So if there's so much stress, how do I make time to do all of these things when I don't have the support I need?
Okay. Well, like I said, in the economy of our limited resources, time is definitely a factor, and I understand. But the thing is, I have the same amount of time in a day as you do. So I'm a big believer in prioritizing. If we see the urgency, it will happen. And so perhaps you can really reflect and write out what you do on a day-to-day basis, and write down the things that you definitely do every single day, and then pair it up with what's something you do every day to ensure that it happens. So for example, it could be having a shower. Make sure that you take some time out for rest and relaxation before or after you have a shower. So it's all, or whether it be brushing your teeth or eating a meal. So it's, if you find that you pair it up with something that you do regularly, that can also help. But as for support, perhaps talking to your partner and wife and communicating may be a good start.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cindy. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hi. Is there a chance to get the chart of the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems that's affected by stress?
Absolutely. Yes. I can definitely forward that to you via email, Ruth.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Thanks.
That's okay, Ruth. I'll make sure that happens. Alrighty. I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you everyone for coming, or if you're watching this later on online, thank you. And if you do have any questions later on, don't hesitate to call the practice or drop comments, or even if you see me in practice, have a chat. All right, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome, it's a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.